Shannon Foreman.
Helen Richards. Helen, nice to meet you.
Shannon Foreman.
Nice to meet you.
Just one quick thing before.
Please be seated.
One quick thing, make sure your cell phones are off.
Yeah, sorry about that at the last minute.
That's okay.
All right, I'm going to call this Congressional Committee to order. We're here to listen to our experts from Reno High School, Unit 6. And the question we have chosen for you tonight is question number 3. For one thing is certain, the greatest threats to constitutional government spring from the paucity or lack of serious public discourse. And this is from an uninformed public. Do you agree or disagree with the opinion expressed here? Why? What rules did the framers establish to ensure serious, fair discussion at the Philadelphia Convention, and are those rules still useful today? What responsibility, if any, do schools have for teaching students how to engage in informed civil discourse? Why? You may begin.
The lack of public discourse in our society today has led to the greatest threat to our constitutional government, an uninformed public. 3 bills largely unknown by the general public attest to this issue of an uninformed public, creating the potential for the devolution of rights.
The National Defense Authorization Act allows United States citizens to be detained indefinitely without their due process rights by circumventing the 14th Amendment. The Enemy Expatriation Act would allow the government to strip censorship from Americans if deemed a threat or cooperating in any way with enemy combatants.
The Stop Online Piracy Act, or SOPA, recently suspended until late 2012, will cripple the freedom of internet speech and destroy various thriving internet corporations like YouTube, Wikipedia, and Google. Without public discourse and proper education, SOPA will result in the devolution of civil rights. January 18th was dedicated as the National Day to protest SOPA. During this event, many prominent websites like Reddit, Wikipedia, and Google shut down some or all of their services, which resulted in a public outrage and the benching of SOPA.
Proper public discourse protects the rights of the American citizens by keeping the public informed on impending dangers to civil rights and prevents America in 2012 from turning into an oligarchical dictatorship like that of George Orwell's 1984.
During the Philadelphia Convention, the framers established several rules for fair discussion. The rules, as well as their modern use, are as follows. Delegates from at least 7 states had to present for the convention to do business each day. Today, this rule is set at ½ + 1 for the House of Representatives and for the Senate in order to conduct business. Article 6, Section 2(4) of the Rules of Senate state, no senator shall absent himself from the service of the Senate without leave. This prevents members of the Senate from freeing themselves from the responsibility of difficult decisions.
When rising to speak, a delegate had to address the president. While a delegate was speaking, no other member could speak or be inattentive. This rule ensures all voices who wish to speak will be heard and will not fall on deaf ears. A member was not allowed to speak more than twice on the same question. He could not speak the second time until every other member had had first an opportunity to speak on the subject. This rule is still current under Article 19, Section 2 of the Rules of Senate.
Committees can be appointed as necessary. Article 24, Section 1 of the Rules of Senate still hold this as viable today. Standing, select, joint, and conference committees are all necessary for maintaining maximum efficiency. The convention's proceedings were to remain secret. Article 21, Section 1 of the Rules of Senate allow for a closed-door meeting. This rule is necessary to protect military secrets, like the assassination of Osama bin Laden.
John Dewey, in his book entitled School and Society in 1899, stated, "Democracy has to be born anew every generation, and education is its midwife." Employer veto in education is a fundamental privilege under the 14th Amendment. Through this, schools assume responsibility to grant students an education in government and the tools necessary to hold informed civil discourse. They have largely failed to do so.
Last month, our unit spoke with former Colorado Congressman David Skaggs on this failure. Skaggs lamented what he called the present unilateral civic disarmament of our students, rendering them ignorant and distrustful.
In order to revitalize the type of civic discourse seen at the convention, we need to teach civil discourse in our schools. Classes like We the People are modern examples of how our schools teach students to engage in informed civil discourse. This education is essential to create well-rounded, active citizens in our society. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now we're going to give you some follow-up questions, and I'd be pleased to ask the first one. So, how do we create an effective Truth in Campaign Ads Commission so that we can have civil discourse?
It's very difficult to create this due to Citizens United versus FEC. We're now anonymous organizations under, even though they're patriotic and very profound names, which would seem to unite the public, are really putting on the air pretty nasty stuff. And the way we could do this is simply by repealing Citizens United versus FEC, not allowing anonymity in the election process, and allowing and forcing corporations who sponsor these bills or sponsor these patrons to identify themselves.
The burden doesn't necessarily fall on the government because of the rights to speech under the First Amendment. You have the right to blackball or say anything you desire. The need for civic education and the need for the students to understand what is good information and what is bad information falls on the schools, and in that education we as students need to learn to decipher what information we should utilize in making our decision to vote.
The term mudslinging or using derogatory statements toward your other opponents needs to stop, and that does not help civil discourse at all, and just promotes putting down other opponents that you're competing against.
I think
Well, hang on, I want to come back to you for just a second. Not to you specifically, but to all of you. The pundits Tuesday night, or after the Florida thing was finished last night, okay, said that the reason Romney jumped up so high was because of his negative advertising. Period. There was no question about that. So how does that fit with you solving this issue of civil discourse? If people want to win, they do it by attack. Okay, so what could happen as a society among adults, among the voting populace, to make that change?
Well, in the conference call with us, what Daniel Skaggs has said to us is that politicians represent our society, and really this mudslinging and this attack, which is getting them popularity, is really referencing and stemming from what our culture really promotes or what it believes in. And to change the way the public views means strictly to change education or change morals, and that's very difficult to do. It's not something one can change with simply legislation. It needs to be taught throughout the generations that true ideas through campaigns need to be taught, and not necessarily just by mudslinging.
Well, I think we as the people need to stand up. If we're not liking these people doing these negative ads, we need to stand up and say, hey, we don't want to see that anymore. We would much rather see these positive ads. And I think it comes back to politicians. Recently, 2 politicians have made a contract that they're not going to say bad things about the other person, and if any of them violate this, then they get fined. I think that's one of the ways that we can promote positive ads, is by fining politicians if they do negative ones.
I have a question. Wouldn't that then inhibit their ability to draw attention to potential negative things that are true?
There's ways, the way that they debate, they can bring out issues through civil discourse that don't necessarily have to be these mudslinging, angry advertisements that one can't sort through what's true and what's not. When it's addressed in a debate, the person has a chance to respond and defend their side of the story, versus in an advertisement, you don't necessarily get the whole story, you just get the simple argument of the one side.
You shouldn't put down an opponent just to get your point across in a debate promoting civil discourse. What you need to do is you need to state your facts, what you're going to do, and how you're going to do it to promote it. That's how you should be elected, not putting down other opponents to get votes.
This debate is really getting to the heart of what really should be allowed to fly at these debates, and it really gets down to the heart that is the individual attacking a person, or are they attacking their campaign? If another person is getting to the truth of what they've done in a political sense, maybe that's more important than saying how many girlfriends they've had in the past. And that's the difference between this mudslinging that's really gaining entertainment. Like Romney and Michelle Bachmann accused Gingrich of taking corporate bribes from certain corporations for passing bills. I mean, that is definitely a viable thing to bring on the table, whereas maybe, excuse me, Rick Perry moment here. How many girlfriends the other candidate has?
Ken, you got a question?
Sure. What do you think are some of the most important legal rights and obligations of citizens?
recently we've been talking a lot about the right for the trial by jury. I think that's one of the most important things, and most people take it for granted, but that is the people's check on their government to enforce laws and to see who is guilty and who is not.
I'm a big believer of the Fourth Amendment. That really, I also believe is not only one of the most important rights, but should also be expanded upon to protect internet rights and other forms of new technological rights like U.S. v. Jones. And that's a good case that is really helping to promote personal rights and people saying that privacy is definitely an important feature in today's society.
As we've been discussing the First Amendment and the right to publish what you need to have that check on your government, have that check on political campaigns, and have that civil discourse under speech, press, and all the expressions that are allowed under the First Amendment.
I'd love to hear what you think about super PACs before your time is up.
And their effect on civil discourse.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I would say super PACs, although they can be used negatively, are definitely something that promote getting the word out and getting people to see these ads that could be positive and different things, and to meet with different NGOs, like meet with these people that they can talk about civil discourse and engage in those different things and talk about what they have seen through these super PACs promoting these ads.
Although lobbying and now the super PACs given under Citizens United versus FEC can also spread the flow of knowledge by informing congressmen and other individuals of certain impacts on pending legislation, whether beneficial or unbeneficial, it's dangerous to allow unlimited money supply in sponsoring our campaigns for our next presidential election. And it's also dangerous getting an unlimited money supply within Congress. As a famous quote goes, it's dangerous to, absolute power corrupts absolutely, and that's that danger of unlimited money.
I have to disagree with that opponent. Super PACs have a very negative effect on civil discourse because of the money. Money in politics nowadays is going to trump the word, and it is going to dilute civil discourse.
I agree with my colleague, not only because of the unlimited funds, but the fact that Citizens United allows anonymous unlimited funds, so you don't necessarily know where these, where the money is coming from, and if that's a just source to be utilizing and casting your vote.
Would you agree or disagree that having a regular scheduled debate between the president and the leader of the other party on a regular basis debating the issues, would that add to or take away from civil discourse? Explain your answer.
I would say it would add to civil discourse, because I think a lot of times the public doesn't necessarily know when these debates are going on. So if it's on a regular basis and people know about it, they're more likely to watch it and engage in civil discourse after they've seen it.
James Madison stated in Federalist 51 that ambition must be made to counteract ambition. So having two very strong leaders taking each other on and questioning their actions and their authorities can lead to exploitation of things that have been done incorrectly or ways to do things betterly, and it essentially could reach a way for these two sides that are often in stalemate to reach an agreement.
Well, Reagan was famous for having a great friendship with the leader of the majority party, which was Democratic, but his administration is famous for completing very many of their goals, and still famous for completing the devolution of rights, devolution of rights back to the states that he promised. And it definitely shows that if the two parties can work together, then the people work together, and bipartisan bickering doesn't affect the way we view politics.
How much more time do we
You got 1 minute, more than a minute.
So, I came up with a question when I walked into Richard. If the Democratic Party represents common welfare and the Republican Party represents individual rights, I want to know whether you agree with me or disagree with me, and prove it.
Well, the Republican Party agreeing with the individual's rights stems from the Lockean belief of life, liberty, and property, and that's where they find their basis for these beliefs. And the other side, I would agree that that's what the Republican Party is stemming their beliefs from.
Can you apply to that to any current event kinds of things, any decisions or laws that have been passed in the last few years? It might represent that.
How about the healthcare bill that is being pushed right now through Congress? They want to supply everyone with healthcare, the Democratic Party, and this is definitely going towards the classical Republicanism belief of support your community.
Finish. Go ahead and finish already. Kellen. Good.
Well, no, I want to go.
Go!
Well, individual rights can be seen as, I don't necessarily agree that the Republican Party is all for individual rights. It's tough to say and sponsor exactly one party with having these individual rights. And like many of these bills that we're coming up and seeing with SOPA, the Expatriation Act, a lot of these are being drafted by Republicans. Like Joe Lieberman drafted the Expatriation Act, and he's a Republican. And it stems back to very many of them doing this, and it's starting to become a common occurrence where I don't know really if it's just the Republican Party or just the lack of Congress going back to individual rights.
Let's give him a round of applause. Feedback for them.
I thought you guys, again, not being a super government guy other than just a normal American voter, I'm very impressed. I mean, I thought your opening testimony was very strong, very smooth. You guys have it nailed from my perspective. And the other thing that I really liked that you did is you really shared on cross-ex very well, almost seamlessly from my perspective. So I thought you guys did a great job. It's interesting to watch you from the first time I came here to now, how much more polished you are. You guys have put in a tremendous amount of work. Great job.
I am just so impressed by all of this. I mean, by so many of the things that you were able to do. I mean, just coming from a public speaking standpoint, I thought your eye contact was great. I thought the way you worked together was great. I'm also impressed by the fact that you guys are able to disagree with each other, but make it civil and make it intelligent. Overall, I was just hugely impressed, and way to go, Pop Clock.
Thank you,
I was told before this starts that I have to be nice because I'm the one who makes people cry. So I will very clearly got that very special direction tonight to me. I thought you were outstanding. Okay. The only thing, you had more passion coming from the judges than there was from you. Okay. These are hot, fiery issues. You either think that this negative advertising is just awful, or you think that's the way you're going to win and it's okay. Put some of that into that. Don't be so sweet, okay? You really are trying to convince us that you know what you're talking about and that you believe what you're talking about, that it's not just information that's been put in your heads and taught to you and it's there and you're spitting it back to us. We want to know who you are, where you come from, okay? Another suggestion, this is unrelated to anything, I'm surprised you didn't say this. You should either all hold your notebooks up or nobody hold their notebook up. And I'll tell you, and it looked better for the two that held it up because they looked at us while you two were both looking down at the table. Okay, so you may want to think about that and practice on that. That's no big deal one way or another, but like, I want you to sell yourselves like you're the kings and queens, you know? Okay?
Yeah, for sure.
There used to be, when Andy was back working with, when I was working with his class, his teacher, we used to have a word on the board. It was passion. Okay?
The formative presentation I thought was very good. I certainly felt that you were talking about the issue of civil discourse as was discussed by the framers. But now and one thing for improvement, I don't know quite frankly how to do it, but you talk, I got the sense you were talking about the issue of civil discourse back when the framers were talking about. But you ought to bring in what we're talking about now with regard to civil discourse. I thought your answers to the cross-examinations was excellent, really excellent. I really liked the idea of bringing out, eliminating the anonymity on the attack ads. I thought it was interesting. You didn't think the burden of truth in advertising campaigns was on the government. You talked about civic education, allowing that. I like the fact that you said we need to stand up. People who do not like this negative ad need to stand up. Well, does anybody ever write to Romney and say, I don't like what you did, or Gingrich, or I don't like what you did. I'm hoping that more people, in fact, will tell the politicians that we don't want this mudslinging, this diverting the truth, etc. And maybe, and the facts show that, and unfortunately, negative advertising does work. Well, it won't work if they don't do it when they hear it from enough people that we're not going to put up with anymore. And the answers to the questions, Ari's question about what about where it brings up something negative, that's true. I thought it was a great answer to that. That yeah, you can bring up things that are relevant, but and factual, but not stuff that's not that relevant. I thought your cross-examination was really excellent. I really thought.
Well, I don't want to thank you. I love it when I get to learn something new. And I didn't know anything about the Senate rules, and I thought that was absolutely fascinating. I mean, you immediately got my attention. This was like, wait. And I think most of the judges will, if you get asked this question, will respond to that.
And practice your 4-minute presentation so you have better eye contact, because Judy's right about making eye contact with your audience. But all very good. Good job.
Good job, guys.
Hey, thanks, good job.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you bet.